Hi everyone, welcome. This is a sample coaching session that one of my students, one of my actually longest running students, Rob, has graciously allowed us to record to give people an idea of what to expect from coaching. That's a common question that I get. Rob, I've been teaching for quite some time. He kind of came to me mentioning he is having trouble in certain matchups, struggling a little bit into some of his locals at his PQs and wanting to look for ways to improve and get better. And since then, you've grown a ton as a player. I know you've had a few pretty exciting results and you've hit some pretty big goals of yours. Do you just want to give people an idea of sort of like where you've come since we started coaching and how you've grown as a player? And of course, a lot of that is your own hard work and your own practice as well. But
Absolutely. So I came to where I finished middle of the pack about like a 40-man PQ, uh, ultimately missing top eight because of a Dromai game where I was up 35-1 and through the game, and then really decided I needed some help. And then after we first worked together, I was actually able to win my next Pro Quest after that and attend Pro Tour LA and be a participant in that event as my first kind of T4 event. Um, and since then, I think my biggest accomplishment is getting top four at PTI San Francisco out of like a 60 or 80 person PTI event.
Yeah, so very exciting stuff. I know I've noticed a huge difference in your gameplay as you've practiced and learned and continued to play more and more Flesh and Blood, and it's been really exciting seeing you have that journey. And I just wanted to give our listeners or our viewers an idea of kind of just who you are and kind of our history a little bit.
Mhm.
So today, one of the things that Rob and I sometimes do in coaching, we do a number of things, but one of the things we sometimes do is gameplay review, where we watch a video of a pre-recorded game that Rob has picked out that is relevant to us, where he maybe has some questions or it's a close game, one where there's things to learn, and I kind of give my thoughts and feedback on that, and he has a chance to ask questions as well, of course. Um, I believe Rob is just on the Patreon Florian list that I took to the ProQuest Plus in Houston, just following that sideboard guide. And we have today an Aurora game to start, and then an Enigma game afterwards. It looks like this Aurora game is against Lupin Fiasco, well-known content creator, has played a ton of KO, and I know has been dabbling in Aurora. So pretty excited for this game. I think that you're both strong players, and I think it should be a good one. For our viewers, how many games of Florian would you say you have under your belt at this point? Just so they
Probably
know.
about 10 at this point on
Okay.
CC.
So getting a feel for the deck, definitely not your first games, but also still learning.
Yeah, I think something I really want to focus on in this matchup, especially,
Mhm.
is managing my graveyard to properly decompose.
Yeah, that's a big one. So one of the things I talk about with this deck is that there's a big difference between if you play three decomposes versus four decomposes, because you can banish two earth cards and one action card. So if you banish two earth cards, three earth cards, and three earth cards, you've played three decomposers and you're online. But if you banish two, 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 you actually have to play four decomposers, which is quite a bit slower. Sometimes you don't have a choice. You don't always see your earth cards. This deck is kind of trying to run as few as possible to keep the card quality and three block count up. So that is like a bit of a deck building concession that we have here. But ideally, we're aiming for that three decompose count. And I agree that managing that graveyard and those decomposes is like one of the more challenging aspects of the deck, and something that I made a few mistakes with on the weekend as well. So yeah, definitely a lot to dig into there. All right, without further ado, let's check out this Aurora game. So Rob is going first here. Going first is often pretty nice as Florian. You could get some rune chance, get some graveyard fill. Going second can be a bit lethargic sometimes, and right away sending in that Autumn's Touch, um, as well as the one rune chant to hopefully strip most of Aurora's hand, I guess, um, and just get a little graveyard fill. You even leak some damage. Okay, that's pretty good for us. They do get the Channel Lightning Valley, but I think they were going to get that no matter what. You have a CNC and Arsenal, which is pretty nice. And you draw into Felling as well as some nice Earth cards here.
So drawing up this hand, I think my plan here is to probably just play. Well, I'll ask you this question now: is especially as we see him play Burn Up Shock, so he's going to trigger Lightning Valley no matter what.
Yes.
Um, and Felling on the Crown as a 3 for 4 that strips a card from his hand is still pretty reasonable.
Hmm.
But should I be looking to just go block with Earth Form, block with Autumn's Touch? I mean, obviously it depends on what he plays, and then just Felling, or is this somewhere where I would want to CNC first and then Arsenal the Autumn's Touch? You think?
Um, I think that usually I would lean towards, if they're on an arsenal especially, I would lean towards playing the CNC while it's relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes heroes will adapt to us, knowing that we have both Plow Under and CNCs by just not arsenaling sometimes. So if you were able to get them off of an arsenal, especially with a Channel Lightning Valley on turn, on the board for their next turn, and keep them
Yeah.
off that 5 card hand, that's sort of like one of the things that we're trying to do as Florian with getting him online, is we want to keep them off 5 card hands and getting max value out of that CNC when it's relevant, and then saving the felling so that potentially if we draw into a Rootbound Carapace, we might even be able to get the full 8 power out of it, is probably the optimal line. But, you may have to end up playing it out anyways, but I think my tendency would be to play the CNC and hopefully get max value out of the felling later, if that makes
That makes
sense.
sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's see, there's a Burn Up Shock. You mentioned he'll get the Lightning Valley draw anyways. We don't have AV1, and this is kind of the spot where even if you have AV1, it's really hard to want to AV1 because then you're going to leak to the Burn Up Shock and they're going to get the draw anyways, and you've used a card to block for 1. So even though you could AV1 here to stop the draw, you're unlikely to stop the draw for the turn, or you're going to spend most of your equipment doing so, and it's just not super great. This looks like Starfall coming in. Pretty clean block here, I think. Yeah, just giving up the Earth form, that makes a lot of sense. Anytime you can just get a clean block, it's really nice. There's a
Yeah.
Gone in a Flash. So there's a bit of a question here of if you could use equipment. It's rough that you either need to use 2 pieces of equipment or you need to use a 3 block and a 2 block and sort of overblock, and then probably have to do it
Yeah.
again on the next one. So I think I'm okay with not blocking here. Although I think I would go ahead and block with the Autumn's Touch. I guess you're going to assume that he won't have the... I guess he has enough cards that is fine. Yeah, okay. Okay. This is fine. And then, okay, so you decide to play the Felling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think now playing probably 10 more games of the hero since then, I would want to play the CNC here.
Yeah, so especially because they end on the Arsenal, I think getting the disruption when it can, and then potentially getting the 4 points on the Felling later could end
Yeah.
up mattering. So that will be something that we can keep an eye on later in the game is, A, would you have been able to get those 4 points? And B, what would the game have looked like if you presented 4 more damage? Of course, they may have blocked. It could change the outcome of the game quite a bit, but we can get a bit of a feel for how relevant that 4 damage might have been, and we'll check in on that as we go. But I do think this is kind of a big one, because if you're ever able to get 4 more points out of your felling, that's actually huge. And depending on the value your CNC gets later, that could be another consideration. Like if you end up playing the CNC and not getting value out of it, that's like further value loss. So there's potentially a lot that you're giving up here, but we'll keep an eye on how it goes. They block Iron Weave, probably just wanting to have it online. You have a Summer's Fall. Okay. Arc Lightning, and double channel Lightning Valley. That's pretty scary, but not a lot we can do about it. And Flicker Wisp. Okay, so they found the combo pretty much right away. It's good that you took
Yeah.
a card from them, but this is pretty painful. Static Shock.
I mean, we could look at even right now, like how much better the C. I mean, because he can't full armor the CNC, right? Because he has 1 on Aether Weave, 2 on Gauntlets, 1 on Boots, so he has to give me a card regardless on CNC.
Yeah, and then you would break up some of the combo from that. I
Who actually?
believe.
What's his arsenal? The Lightning Valley.
That's actually a great question. Let's see
I think
here.
it was. Actually, it's hard to tell.
Oh,
Sigil.
so Sigil pops, plays Arc Lightning, triggers Channel
Nope.
Lightning Valley from hand.
It's the Flicker Wisp and Arsenal.
The Flicker Wisp and Arsenal. So yeah, you would either be taking You might ultimately only take one card from hand, but and get like his grasp and his lightning greave. So like maybe you just get like a 2 block and the equipment, but
Hmm.
still that equipment block is pretty valuable. And if he is unable to block that, or if that somehow makes his turn worse, threatening the Flicker Wisp is probably better than letting him choose one of the 4 cards in hand
Yeah.
to bottom. The fact that they get the choice is, yeah, it's similar to blocking, but they can potentially block. They can potentially bottom an instant, I guess, is the big difference.
Yeah.
Getting the 3 block in here makes sense. This on hit is decent, but it's hard to get. It's hard to want to give a 2 block gloves to save. I guess it's 2 extra life because it's arcane. Is it? Yeah, it's
Yeah, because
arcane.
it's effectively blocking three with the gloves. So I was like, it
Okay.
felt worth it.
Oh, so you do get the gloves here. I think that's reasonable. I often save the gloves for burn up shock, but it is
Okay.
quite a bit of damage, and you are getting pretty low. So yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. Starfall coming in, probably not worth blocking that. I think you're hoping to get the 3 block here.
Exactly.
This is a lot of damage though.
Yeah.
And more arcane, ouch, all the way down to 12. Yeah, that hurts. Um,
Is there is there a place for me to use Pace Purgatory here?
I don't really think so. So I
Okay.
was also keeping an eye out for that, and it's good that you held sort of non-attacks and attacks in hand so that you can face Purgatory, but I don't think he ever attacked for more than 4 physical, so you would be wasting so much block that even though you take a card out of hand, I don't know that it's really super worth it.
Mhm. I would
But
just
if there was ever like a 7 power attack in there, I think I would snap it off for sure though.
use it. Yeah. I was just curious with the Arc Lightning Flicker Wisp combos, like taking the extra card because there's two extra go again in there, like you know how
Hmm.
much math because we're down to what 23 life.
Yeah, it definitely is quite a bit of life. The good news is we're doing pretty good on Decompose, and you do have the Summer's Fall to interact with the Channel Lightning Valley. So I think despite the life totals looking pretty tough here, you're actually in an okay spot. You also have most of your equipment, and Barkskin and Well
Mhm.
Grounded are about to be online. Ideally, we use Barkskin for its full effect, but into Aurora, sometimes the 5 block can be a little hard to make use out of. So if we use it for a 4 block, especially on like a burn up shock turn, it's not the end of the world either. Um, and I guess a little bit of a note about the grasp block. I think you probably had to do it to save 3 life. You probably don't want to be at 9, but often I want to keep grasp and barkskin up so that I can cover a 4 on them and
Mhm.
then have the embodiments for the following blocks because often you'll want to use like Barkskin on their burn up shock turn, but the problem is that if you use like a 3 block and Barkskin, you're often wasting some block, and then it can be hard to like make use of the embodiments. Whereas if you're able to cover 4 with your equipment and then have the embodiments online, it's a lot easier to cover. Grass. The other spot you can use it is on Starfall, but I think good Auroras will try to wait on Starfall if your Barkskin's full. Summer's Fall, they get the ping here. That's a little unfortunate. Not much you can do though. And then you get their Lightning Valley, which is pretty good. So if you had kept the Felling in Arsenal, you would be at 3. Um, yeah, you would be at 3 only, but you would have the Felling ready to go with the fodder ready to go. So you'd be like kind of
Yeah.
okay. But it might take a little bit longer to get online. Let's see how that plays. This is a pretty nice hand if we're able to keep it, but we are pretty low on life, so we can't take too much. Yeah, I like blocking with the Plowunder. The Felling is just the highest value card, and the Arcane Seeds, of course, converts really cleanly, but we're most likely blocking with it. Yep, pretty clean blocks, and then you could play Felling from hand. So in this spot, if we would be able to play the Felling from hand, have a Felling in Arsenal, this Felling would be online and we would be able to get the extra 4 value. So we'll see if that ends
Mhm.
up mattering. And notably, we also wouldn't have Florian online this turn. It would probably be one more turn cycle. So we're gonna see if both of those things, if having Florian online sooner is helpful, and also if that 4 points from the felling is helpful to kind of have a feel for it.
Yeah, so we're activating on turn 4. I guess we're transforming on turn 4.
Yeah, which is
And
pretty
if we
good.
wouldn't do it, we'd be on turn 5. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there definitely is some trade-off. It's not all downside that you played the felling early, but yeah, let's see. So you'd have well grounded on and Barkskin's first mode on, but not Florian on. Um, so there's 8 coming in. Looks like he just decides to not block. Start with a Sizzle and Starfall. You have another Felling of the Crown. That's pretty sick. Oh.
I'm
So
thinking I wanted to play the Arcane Seeds here, and I wanted to just full cover whatever he sends next, but it's...
yeah, so I think so I don't mind this block in the abstract, but what I'll say is that you should definitely block with the Autumn's Touch here. Because for one, it's Earth for Decomposed Fill. Even though we have Florian online, we still want to get
Yeah.
Earth cards in when we can. And for two, the Warmongers is going to bump up to 7 here, so we're actually overblocking by 2. And if we really need, with like only 2 cards remaining, we're probably okay. But having the potential 5 block is very good. Like we can
Yeah.
soak up more damage. So I think holding the Warmongers back and likely pitching that card, but blocking if we have to, is going to be a little better, and getting the Autumn's Touch in the yard is going to be a little better, but we'll see if that matters too much. Because yeah, that goes up to 7 block. There's a Grasp here, and a second strike, and we're just low enough that probably have to block. Yeah, fully covering it, that's pretty nice. And then there's a Flittering Charge, this is a little painful. I don't think we can go to 3. Giving equipment here, okay. I like the equipment block. I think the felling is valuable enough that we should go for the equipment block
Yeah.
here.
2
So
card
yeah,
weapon's pretty good.
yeah, absolutely. So even though we would have been online a turn later, we didn't actually end up really using the double embodiment there. That was one of the things we talked about, is the 5 block is hard to use. The 4 block would have been sufficient. So in this game, getting the extra 4 value out of the felling definitely would have been better, and I think your intuition there is definitely right. And now we're finally seeing our first D reacts. We would have loved to have these earlier and put them in Arsenal, but you know, card games.
Yep. Is what it is.
Yep, absolutely.
So ultimately, I know I can't use Rebound this turn. Or at least I don't want to use Rebound this turn.
Because you
Because I
only have
can't
the
fill my
one.
yard.
Yeah, that makes sense. You'd ideally Arsenal it. Um, yeah, so at this point, so you're looking to Arsenal the root bound is kind of the basic idea here.
Yeah, at least that's my thought. Just because
Mhm.
I'd rather not use it as a 2 block unless he throws Starfall, and then I'm like, all right, it's fine as a 2 block.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that because you are so low, getting a D-React into Arsenal here is really, really premium, because it's going to let you soak up a little bit more damage, which is kind of what you need to be able to do. You need to find a spot to soak up some damage, perhaps with your equipment, with a D-React, hold onto a hand, and just keep clawing back the life total. Because we were down, I don't even remember, it was like almost 30 life, and now it's
It was,
only
yeah.
13. So we're definitely clawing it back, cutting into the equipment a little bit, but
Mhm.
you know, felling is a hell of a card. Arc Lightning's a bit painful, but not the most go again here. Okay.
And it sucks because I mean, like, I can't really, what's it called? Purgatory here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't really Purgatory here.
We have no non-attacks, and even though it's a 7, it's still like, it's fine.
Yeah, so you have a CNC in Arsenal. Hypothetically, this could still be a felling of the crown. I guess So what's the difference? The felling of the crown is going to be more damage, and then you can either choose to convert grasp into it, or you can choose to not activate it and then arsenal the root bound. I think just like grasping is probably a little better. So you do give up
Yeah.
the D-react, but I think that the higher damage is like overall just worth it, and then you would be taking a card from them. So you'd be down the D-react, but you would take a card and you'd be pushing a fair bit more damage. So you would have gotten like 2 points from the grasp and then 4 points from the felling. So you'd be up about 6 life points right now if we had played the CNC earlier.
Mhm.
They do have a pretty nice play with somersault here, just to get some value.
Yeah.
More arcane, a little painful. 7. So lead me through your thoughts here. What are
I'm
kind of the
pretty
options you're
sure
considering?
I want to germinate so I can at least get some life back because the
Hmm.
arcane is going to tick me down.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'm going to throw D-react from Arsenal in Autumn's Touch is what I think. So I want to cover 6, and
hmm,
then use germinate to get a couple life back, set up a embodiment, and build some ring chance.
I think that makes a ton of sense.
There's okay.
I think I like your line a little bit better, but it's actually very close between the two of them. So
Yeah, because I can't really use Purgatory like too well this game.
yeah, it's probably very hard to get purgatory value. We'll see if there was a spot where you could have potentially gotten it. These 5 blocks are going to do a ton of work, though. One of the potential bonuses to using the D-react here is we'll see if it ends up mattering, but like if he arsenals here, you actually can't really use that rootbound carapace.
Yeah,
Um,
I realize that I probably should have just used the root bound on the right on the
yeah,
rabbit
so you
this.
miss a point here because you could have decomposed for 3 and then still had to face purgatory. So
Mhm.
you kind of like lose a point of efficiency there. And then sending back, what is this, 6 and 3? So pretty good. And if we had those 6 more points of damage, they would actually be getting very, very low here. We also might have a little more higher life total if we had taken a card with a felling. Like when you ended up playing the CNC into no arsenal, had that been the felling, I
Mhm.
think we would have had a little more life total because they'd have less cards to attack with. I suppose it'd only be one less because they just ended up doing E-strike, but still, or one more, sorry. Yeah, 2 block on the 2 block makes a lot of sense. Or 2 block on the 2 power. Snatch. We have the D react, okay.
If he's got the lightning press there, he's the better gamer. I feel like it's just I gotta
Yeah, you can't
try to take my
really
line.
afford to play around it here, I don't think. I think you want to hold on to that Earth chess piece if you can.
Yeah.
Returns it. Static shock. Choosing to just take the damage, I think that that makes a lot of sense. And then you can grasp reaping. And if we had the 6 points of damage that we discussed here, they'd actually be at 3, and you would be getting 1 card from them at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, that damage I think matters quite a bit here. Because that would kind of blunt their offense. They do end up giving you a card regardless, so maybe it doesn't super matter, but still, if they could convert their hand, it'd be relevant. Definitely getting low. What are you hoping to do with this hand when you see this Starfall coming in for 5 with 2 cards behind it, keeping in mind the red snatch and pitch?
I'm maybe hoping I can just set up a D react. I feel like he's looking to set up here. He's looking to put enough pressure on me where I can't take cards out of his hand with his hand. And if he sets up, I don't have the AB to live, so I have to really try to take cards out of his hand. Is my guess. I'm guessing he's got an arc lightning or a flicker wisp or something to really just kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I need to try to scrap together a turn that does something, but this hand doesn't really do that. Because if I had
Yeah.
like it was Blue Autumn's Touch, I could go Grasp into Swarming into Reaping Blade, which is plenty of damage. That's like 9 damage off a 2 card hand. That threatens cards out of his hand. That's something he actually has to engage with. But he's given me some really good breakpoints that are hard for me to block. So like
Yeah.
I could go chest into sink below, but I can't use the embodiments this turn
Right.
if I wanted to
Yeah.
cover this. So I'm in a kind of in between a rock and a hard spot.
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit tricky. I would be checking how many arc lightnings he has here. Um,
Should have one left.
yeah, I believe it's one. Covering with root bound. Yeah, this makes some sense. You don't want to take damage here. And then there's the snatch. And you snap off the sink below. Okay. I think here I would be inclined actually to block with the swarming
Okay.
and arsenal the sink below. You do go to 2, which is a little bit scary for the arcane, but I also think if they have arc lightning, you're not surviving anyways.
Yeah.
And it is a little scary with the grasp going to 2, but I think you want that sink below in arsenal. It's very close. It's very close. I suppose the swarming does potentially mean if you hold onto a blue, you can start taking cards, so that's also relevant. But I think I like trying to get the D reaction arsenal. Sink into Summer's Fall. So I
I was
think
thinking for a blue was my idea, or it's like a D react, and that way I
mhm.
could just go with a blue. You go grasp it in a blade, and with a D react, at least I have an arsenal.
Yeah, I think I think overall, I think if you hit the D react, you get really rewarded. I think that the blue's fine, but I think that overall the Grasp Reaping Blade might actually just be the most efficient because you know that you get it's enough to buy cards out of hand if you can hold on to a blue. So if you are going to play the Sync, I would Arsenal. I think I'd just Arsenal the Swarming to be able to take cards out for sure because I think there's a lot of draws here that you're not happy with.
Yeah.
Um, let's see, Grasp, so taking a little bit more Arcane, really pushing for that Arcane, but it looks like they're not really able to convert. You have the Sink below, which is very nice here. Yeah, just digging for non-attacks.
Yeah.
One from that Flicker Wisp, block 6, and you do have to kind of kill them here. So maybe keeping the life total was actually correct. Okay.
Oh yeah. Like if
You would have
we
just taken enough
kept
Arcane.
swarming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If had we just blocked with the swarming. So yeah, really close one. You were almost able to turn the corner here. I think the key decision was the one that you pointed out right at the start with the throwing the felling for 4 instead of throwing the CNC for 6 and waiting on the felling. And then I think you could have been up about 6 damage and started really taking cards. It's hard to say if you would get there or not. The game would change a little bit for sure. You'd also
Mhm.
have gotten one card out of hand later in the game. But I think the game would have at least been very close, and I feel like you might have been able to get there.
Yeah.
But
Makes a lot of sense.
yeah, other than that, I think you handled this really well, and I think this is like a great example of Florian's ability to claw back a life lead, even if you appear a little behind. Um,
It's also really cool to see like how much of a difference that like a turn one play can make of just playing your hand versus your arsenal, and like the repercussions it has kind of throughout the game.
yeah, it can really have the cascading effect because it almost reminds me a little bit of like Icelander, where your turns flow into each other a little bit because of how decompose in your Earth count ends up affecting the value of your hands. Um, yeah, because of that, there ends up often being like long-reaching consequences based on how you manage to decompose and how you manage to disrupt. Um, so yeah, I think this was a great game. I think overall you played very well, especially for the 10 reps that you had on the deck. And yeah, the main mistake I see is that early turn zero play. But other than that, I think I agree with your lines. Um, yeah, very close one. Anything else here before we move on to the Enigma game?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he's had. It's kind of like when you play some decks when they just have like CNC pummel just line up per cycle.
Hmm.
Is kind of what it felt like when he had just when you flicker wisp with arc lightning, and just like it happens sometimes where you just they get that heavy offensive pressure, but like we are still able to kind of keep it close.
Yeah, yeah. And I think especially that he had the arc lightning and you didn't have a D-react in Arsenal, like you didn't see your D-reacts for quite a while. I think if you were able to get a D-react into Arsenal early in the game and sit on it, and then you wouldn't be able to stop the arcane, but you would have been able to cover up some of those breakpoints and some of those attacks a little bit more and like, saved 4 health on that turn or 3 health if it's a yellow root bound. And that would have been pretty big for you. But that was no fault of your own, just kind of how the cards lined up, which is what happens sometimes. All right. So that's Florian versus Aurora. Next we have Florian versus Enigma. Um, so bit of a different matchup. Um, what is your kind of general game plan into Enigma?
My game plan is summer's fall, and I want to keep it in my arsenal, and I want to wait for mirror guys. I think coming from being primarily a guardian player, this is a very tough matchup for me. So often I get in a play pattern about having to take a lot of damage in order to clear auras, and so I don't get behind. And because of summer's fall, I think I make a mistake where I just take probably 20 damage in a turn where I don't need to take that much damage, and I'm still able to clear the auras effectively with Florian specs.
Yeah, yeah, that is kind of a big difference. So because you have the Summers Falls and that kind of just automatically clears an aura, sometimes you can actually afford to block on the Mirror Guy turn, whereas a lot of decks actually can't afford to do that. And I think that makes this matchup a little bit closer for Florian than um, it might first appear. I think it's still hard, but I do think he has some interesting tools into the matchup. Um, and yeah, you very much are trying to play that patient game. So I like that you highlighted that. I think that's one of the keys to this matchup is saving threats in your arsenal for when their board's really scary and willing to be patient with that. I think some people go, it's Enigma, I gotta pressure, 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 but it's really more of a you need to be able to pressure when they ask you to pressure with their board, like when they have a scary
Mhm.
board. And then when they don't have the scary board, you're kind of setting up to get ready for the next time they ask you that question. So you do need to be able to pressure Enigma, but it's less of a consistent pressure. Like I think Dromai was very much like a consistent pressure, whereas Enigma is more like she sets up a board state and says, "Can you knock my board down? If you can't, you're going to lose pretty fast." Um, yeah.
Yeah. There is a point where I get pretty behind. I claw it back. We're both at one for a while. I want to look at how I played that and if I made a mistake, kind of at that low life total.
Sure. Yeah, that's something to keep an eye out for. So we'll see that, and we'll also see if there's spots where you maybe could preserve life, because that's another thing that's important in this matchup is sometimes just preserving some life total. So they go first. They have a Waxing Spectre. It's a little bit scary. Yeah, I don't think you want to take damage. I think this makes a lot of sense. So you can play Incantation and Autumn's Touch to get some graveyard fill, a little bit of pressure, Arsenal the Summer's Fall, and we're one Earth card away from being able to decompose if we need to. It's good stuff. Incantations are really nice in this matchup. I obviously they're more value later, and you kind of want to see them later, but you usually don't want to pitch them second cycle. It's not that important. It's just more of a like if you get it later, that's better, but If you don't, you
Mhm.
don't. So some nice Earth 3 blocks to graveyard fill with, the red Autumn's Touches. You have a Popper, but you don't... I don't know if you want to pop
I
this.
think I marinated on this one. It's like I don't want to pop this, but I kind of have to pop it.
Right, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong for that, but like it felt like
I think... So I think overall I would... it is 7 life. It's a really close call. I think what I would, I think I might just block with the, do you have enough graveyard fill? You do. I think I might just block with the Warmongers actually and just pitch 2 reds. Popping is a little
I
bit
don't have enough
painful.
earth to
Do you not have
decompose.
enough Earth? I
Autumn's
think
touch is the
you,
only earth in there.
didn't you send an Autumn's Touch turn 0 and then block with an Autumn's Touch this turn though?
It was her turn 0, and then I blocked with Swarming Gloom Veil and a blue 3 block, I think.
Yeah, no. So you should have. So you have 1 Autumn's Touch in your yard currently, and then you're gonna send
Yep.
a. You're gonna block with the
Oh,
red Autumn's Touch
I
on the
I see
Restless.
what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think I might just go that route. Giving them the aura is a little bit scary. I think if it wasn't a Waxing Spectre, it'd be a little bit different. But the Waxing Spectre is
Mhm.
pretty scary here. I don't hate popping either. Your life total is really important. But I think the other thing is the Earth form in Arsenal is okay, but not great. Um, I think I can sometimes get stuck a little bit. So that'll be something to pay attention to is the extra aura on board as well as this earth form in Arsenal and how if that earth form ends up feeling good or if it ends up feeling a little bit um, stuck.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I like decomposing just the 2 earth cards so that you have more options to decompose later. You're now online for a felling if you really need to, for example. Um, Nice. So you get the Restless and a Waxing Spectre. Interesting that they gave you the wrong Waxing Spectre, the one without counters, but...
I choose that, right?
Oh, you choose it. Oh, sorry. That was... I was thinking that it was... It took damage. So you bottomed the Waxing with counters and they lost the Restless. Gotcha. So 5 go again into 2. Yeah, you probably still want to break this board. A little unfortunate to whiff on the reds here. Taking a lot of damage, though. But I don't think you have too many choices, honestly. And the Bramble Sparks
Now
were...
I could be wrong here. Maybe I pitch the Malefic and play the one Bramble. I think if I could go back and do it differently, I think I would probably do it. Play a Bramble here so it buffs the CNC.
You don't have the Earth Fuse, otherwise I would like that line. I think if you
Oh,
get
right.
Earth
That's why I
Fuse
didn't do
here...
it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could Earth Fuse and get that on the CNC, that would be fantastic, but... Yeah. You can't do that, unfortunately. Okay, so we do get some board clear. That's nice. Actually, quite a bit of board clear. Okay. Restless. We block. Yeah, we just want to conserve life total. They play a Shimmers. Okay. Grasp into Summer's Fall. Oh,
I can't grasp. I have too many chance.
you have too many chance. You should be able to, right? It costs you 2+2, so it'll cost you 4, and then you can Summer's Fall for 2.
You're right. I guess I missed it. I don't know why I was going back and forth on that.
Yeah, so you could Grasp here for 1 more Arcane. I don't know that it necessarily super matters, because they can still pitch up blue for the 3, so I don't think it's like super consequential, but it could
Yeah.
be. I assume they probably pitch a blue. Yeah, so it wouldn't have really mattered here. And you can bottom the shimmers. One thing worth noting here, um, the Talishars, do you know how Summer's Falls targeting works?
Yes. I target first. Um, then they go to what is it? I target like as I'm casting
Hmm.
before I opt to decompose, correct?
Yes, and then
I
you can
cannot then I choose whether or not I want to decompose after the fact I target, but I can't attack a shimmers and then decompose something else, as far as I understand it.
yeah, that's right. So the decompose is on attack. So you only get
Hmm.
the decompose if you attack heroes. And also Talishar's coding is a little bit weird. They let you choose the target when you decompose, which actually isn't quite right. You're supposed to target
Yep.
and then decompose, which sometimes can be tough because they can like move counters from a mirror guy onto a restless coalescence, which is really really nasty. But just as
Yeah.
like just so everybody's aware, there is a little bit of like weird stuff with that. So you choose the target, Summer's Fall starts attacking, Decompose goes on the stack, and then when Decompose resolves, if you choose to decompose, you bottom the aura that you had targeted, and you can also choose not to decompose. But they have to decide before you choose to decompose, but they'll already know the target. So just a bit of matchup knowledge stuff. Are they gonna let you have this restless? I guess they could make a shield.
Yeah, I think she makes a shield here.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So even though we're down a little bit on life, we're in an okay spot. This Phantasmaclasm's a little painful. Okay, so in this spot, I think I would be inclined to just block. Um, in this matchup,
Hmm.
you need so we haven't seen any mirror guys and their traverse is still on the board, and we often need life total to be able to kind of tear their board back down. And I think one of the big level ups for people in this matchup is when there's a vanilla attack like this and they don't have much of a board. So they have a Restless Coalescence, but there's no counters on it, so it's really not super threatening. It's okay to slow the game down and actually just block. Um, and sort of just say, I'm at 30, you have to kill me. You're kind of putting the onus on them to actually end the game.
Hmm.
So I actually don't mind just blocking 9 and playing an incantation, and just kind of setting up. And then you kind of have some of that set up. Alternatively, you could look at blocking 3, playing an incantation, playing the Earth form that's in your arsenal, and setting up a Rune Rager Swarm. That's like another possible play. The Rune Rager Swarm is pretty nice, especially in combination with the incantations as like a way to get very aggressive if they build up a board. But I think that usually I'm looking to do some amount of blocking when there's just a big attack with no board behind it. If there's a board, it's different.
That makes sense.
Because you mentioned like the one-to-one life total, and this is a spot where you could have potentially saved a fair bit of life. Because Enigma is often just kind of happy to block. And while you do get a little bit of tempo here, in another sense, you're not accomplishing the most. Yeah, so ends up traversing here. It's nice that you can plume for the Summer's Fall. That is pretty good for you.
Yeah.
But so I guess the big difference here would be that well, for one, they wouldn't even be able to traverse because you didn't attack them, and
Hmm.
for two, if they somehow had like if they had the natural G or something, you would have 30 life here to play with instead of just the 21. Because at the end of the day, it's just kind of vanilla damage, and she can take a little bit, and Yeah, because like Enigma wins the game by actually like doing enough damage to kill you, which sounds really obvious, but sometimes by like making it hard, like just saying I'm not gonna let you kill me, I'm just gonna keep breaking your board, it can like almost be hard for her to piece things together if you keep clearing her weapons.
That makes sense.
Um, because like her attacks are very efficient, but if you block 6 on the Miraging Metamorph, it's like okay, I leak 1, like sure. Um, see what we do here. Yeah, so because you have the Summer's Fall, you probably also could have potentially blocked here and just played Summer's Fall and then arsenaled like either the Bramble Spark or the E-Strike. Although pressuring is okay too. I think, yeah, so I think with this hand, I kind of gravitate towards maybe blocking 3, playing the Bramble Spark with like the Autumn's Touch, let's say, play Bramble Spark
Hmm.
fused and just play the Autumn's Touch. Not the Autumn's Touch, the Summer's Fall. You can tuck the Mirror Guy. You're presenting 9 and 1, which is really threatening to their Waxing Spectre. You've conserved 3 life total, and then you can arsenal the E Strike so that if there's a back to back Mirror Guy or something, you have a go again in arsenal that can pressure. Um,
What's the consideration of blocking with a Plow Under versus the E Strike? Because Plow Under would allow me to this puts me to 8 or puts me to 6 or 7 if I wanted to, and then Plow Under would take me over to Hero Power on.
that's true. Maybe Plow Under. I generally value the go again, um, just to be able to consistently break board, but I don't mind. I don't mind arsenaling the plow under either.
Mhm.
That's pretty reasonable because your hero power isn't online. But I think it's between those two. I think you should definitely be blocking 3 on this turn because the 9 and 1 with the tucking the mirror guy is actually just like kind of enough pressure anyways, and just again back to that idea of like conserving life total, so that it's harder for her to actually close the game. You kind of like put the onus on her to actually go over the top.
Yeah,
But yeah. So yeah, I think either one is okay. Plow Under plays towards getting your hero power online. E Strike is a little bit better at breaking the board. Yeah, I don't mind either one. And something important that you did that we didn't talk about was keeping the Summer's Fall in your discard for the Plume of Evergrowth. You want to try to avoid
Mhm.
decomposing that as long as Plume is up. That's something that you just like kind of naturally did, but for people at home, that's something to do, and
it
for you
felt
as well.
so good though to have the blue in hand, have him to chi, and then just immediately or have him traverse and immediately snap break the plume. Like that felt really cool to just be able to like as soon as he popped his headpiece, I can pop my headpiece.
Yeah, yeah, definitely very, very good. Um, Yep, so just some nice pressure here. I think there's even some consideration to Arsenal the Rune Rager Swarm, but you might have a little bit too low life total. The the arsenaling the Rune Rager Swarm would be just so that you're more equipped to close like to break up their board later, rather than sending the 3 now. We'll see if that matters. Summer's Fall here is pretty nice. You gotta clear the shimmers. Makes a lot of sense. So I think often you would be happy to Arsenal Summer's Fall. Like I think if there was no
Hmm.
board, you'd be looking to grasp Reaping Blade,
Absolutely.
but because the Shimmers is there, it's just a really nice way to maintain pressure and play out the Summer's Fall, which is good. Levels. And yeah, 3 damage is not all that much. Your hand converts very efficiently. I like that you're using some armor here. 6 is a lot. Yeah, probably just have to give up an Arcane Seed's life. Well,
The question is, do you go like chest and I can go pop boots? Maybe I don't know. It's because like this is so much damage back that I'm kind of giving up. But the chest is very
yeah.
good at blocking.
Yeah, the chest is very good at blocking here. I don't know about giving up boots. I'm sort of wondering if you ever give up swarming. So swarming comes in for 4,
Okay.
Arcane Seeds is 4. Yeah, I think blocking with a swarming slightly better here. You'll end up taking 1 because
Hmm.
you'll end up taking 1, but then you gain the life back from Arcane Seeds, and then you get 4 Arcane versus 4 Physical. So I think that's slightly better, but
Would you
it's
pop boots and then block with the swarming
I don't.
instead of blocking with chest?
That's interesting.
Oh, I mean, I guess you can pop boots whenever they're always like they're
Yeah,
technically like 2 life, so you can just block with the swarming and go to 3.
yeah. I think you can just block with a swarming, go to 3, and use the Arcane Seeds life. I think that's fine. But here's a spot where like going back, like the game would be quite different. But if we had a little more life total, we would be able to
Hmm.
keep this hand. So I think that's sort of what you're looking for is because Enigma sometimes can't convert her hands or like she doesn't have the ward threat. So you're really looking to have those threats in arsenal when she's pushing the board and then preserve your life total when it's just vanilla attacks. And I think if we had a little more life to work with, this would actually be looking quite good for us, but it's still very close. So yeah, grasp, seeds, swarming. Or you're just sending the reaping blade, keeping the swarming back. Yeah, I actually like
Yeah,
this. We're not pushing
because
lethal and it's... Sorry, go ahead.
I felt like I had enough rune chance where I was going to break the spectral shield, and like that's the big thing I wanted to do with that attack.
Yeah, and kind of that idea that we keep coming back to of just like having something so that you can be explosive when you need to is really really valuable.
Yep.
Rage Spectre.
I think this is a turn I definitely make a mistake on, where I should have blocked another card. I should
Yeah,
have
I was
blocked with the
gonna say.
CNC.
Yeah,
Um,
so you could block with the CNC here, swing the Reaping Blade, Arsenal the Felling.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that you're
because I
right.
think I'm gonna go swarming into CNC, which is not my favorite, and like it's just not as efficient as it could be.
Yeah, this is
I
not
think I make that.
bad. You do get a lot of tempo here, but sometimes Florian can have trouble converting. So what do you get? You get a D-React that is pretty good, and you set him to 2.
I got a pummel.
Oh,
The
you got
D
a
reaction really
pummel?
gun the chain. Yeah,
Oh, pummel is destroyed. Okay, yeah, I see. Okay, so maybe that is kind of actually okay for you. Manifestations. Yeah, and then I think if we had the felling here, we'd probably be a little happier. So they play this, they swing for 4. You potentially have a pretty nice Germinate, but I don't know if you have the time to play it. Yeah,
yeah.
you just gotta block. I think that you don't need to commit the Earth Gesture though. I think you can
Okay.
just commit a 3 block and Yeah, I think you can just commit a
I think
3
that makes
block
more
and go
sense.
to 3. You're kind of not getting any embodiment value, and yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think just the damage here is better, for sure. This is a pretty clean answer from them, though. Yeah, so having the felling on this turn would have been pretty nice, because then you would have been able to play that instead
Yeah.
of the plow under, and potentially arsenal the plow under. Yeah, I like the 3 block. You can sort of grasp, E-strike, reaping.
You
Yeah.
don't want to do a 3-card 10 with just like a bunch of just ragtag cards. Feels so good.
Yeah, Florian's
I'd be curious
surprisingly
if I
good
want
at
to send
converting.
my.
Sorry,
I'm
what was
curious if
that?
I want to go Rune Chant first.
Rune
Sorry,
Chant
I was kind of
first.
talking over you. Yeah, if I go gloves into E-strike.
I don't think it super matters.
Okay.
This is arguably a little better. You can seal some information. There's no like. So if they were on footsteps, you would definitely want to do Rune Chants first. But for Meridian Pathways, I think, yeah, this seems fine.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Rune Chance is slightly better. It doesn't let them get the clean Ward 2, because they could potentially just like fold Ward 2 and a 3 block to cover up E-strike, so maybe that's slightly better. But yeah, they ended up A being 2 anyways, so I don't think it super matters. You actually have a lot of tempo here.
What am I doing?
So what would you do differently?
I can't be right. I mean, like, I probably should just go E-strike bottom the summer Autumn's Touch, and then gloves into Blade, or I could just play an Autumn's Touch for 6, depending how they block.
Yeah, I think I
Wait, do I?
agree.
There's not like lethal on board effectively. Like I can't
Yeah,
present enough breakpoints in weird ways where he has to like where he just loses, but
yeah. I think the Autumn's Touch and Arsenal is probably the way to go.
okay.
Just because like the 3 and 2 versus the 6 is like the 6 isn't really getting any additional cards here compared to the 3 and 2.
I think what I'm doing here is I'm setting up Summersfall
Yeah.
because I think oh I'll need a Summersfall at some point.
Yeah, I think because of the life totals, it's like a little less important, but it's very close. It's honestly very close. I don't hate the idea of Summer's Fall and Arsenal. Um, we will see what ends up being better. This is actually like again pretty good. In grasp,
Yeah,
oath. Is oath worth it here? So oath is 3 in Summer's Fall, or we can earth form. It's very close. I suppose the earth form's on hit never matters, but the 7 is
yeah.
pretty good.
Like this should
Uh,
always because what I can do otherwise is I can like it's a better I think I can go no I can't do because condemned sacrifice or whatever consumption rights
Condemned to slaughter?
the top part of my pitch
Yeah, condemned to slaughter.
yeah condemned slaughter yeah because that's a rune blade yeah so I can't use that in the earth form so that kind of sucks.
Yeah, so I think here I would just hold on to the Summer's Fall actually rather than play the Oath because you only get the 2 rune chants from Oath. It doesn't apply to either of these attacks. It's on your next rune blade
Hmm.
attack. So you are getting 4 rune chants and 4. But I think if you just I think especially because Tunic is up and they can pitch up they can do like pitch a blue, Tunic counter, So it's like one card out of hand to cover the rune chance, and then they can
Mhm.
block like one card in Tunic. So you're potentially only stripping two cards here. Whereas if you do Earth Form and two rune chance, they still have to pitch a whole card to the rune chance. And then if they want to cover the Earth Form, they need to give you like 2/3 blocks and a Tunic, or a D react and a 3 block. But the other one, if they have a D react, they just like give you a clean card and keep Tunic. So
Both
um,
applies to weapons, right?
it does apply to weapons, yeah.
Maybe it's a punt for me not to just swing blade here,
I
because the
don't.
D react can't cover blade cleanly.
Well, your blade's still
I'm
only
putting it for.
4.
Oh, it's four. Okay. Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, I think that the 4 and 4 is not as good. It's 4 and 4 either way, but I think the
Yeah.
4 and 4 is not as good as 7 and 2. Especially the big thing here is the tunic counter that they can pitch one blue and use tunic counter to only use one card to cover the rune chance. So the extra 2 rune chance like pretty much just buy the tunic counter. So you'd rather just have the extra 3 physical instead, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, maybe in these endgames, just like slowing down slightly and thinking about how many cards can you strip with each play and which one is the best.
'Cause I'm pretty sure that's exactly what we see. Is he plays the tunic, or actually
Yeah.
picks the tunic up, and then he hits me with the faith machine.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just very, very clean. Whereas you would have been able to take one more card here with the Earth Form, and you'd actually still have the Summer's Fall and Arsenal. So you'd have a very clean ant. You'd have a very clean Summer's Fall here. I mean, I guess you have a clean Summer's Fall regardless. Let's see what that extra card is. So you wouldn't have to deal with this Miraging Metamorph. Yeah, that's pretty big. So you would have basically ripped the Miraging out of their hand and then been able
Yeah.
to. I guess your turn's not like super, super different. The Summer's Fall is pretty good though. Um, I guess like realistically, they're probably losing the Spectral Shield regardless, but yeah. They beat down a Spectral Shield.
Yeah.
This is a super interesting game. Very close.
Yeah. I was really like happy to like come back from like 33-9, but felt like shit after I lost it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you just block out, swing their Spectral Shield. Yeah, so if you had the Summer's Fall, you would have been able to tuck
Yeah.
the Spectral Shield. So yeah, it ends up mattering a fair bit there.
And the spectral shield is what carries him to win.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think that is like really the key decision in this game is having that. Yeah, because then this hand is like very unfortunate. You end up not having the Bramble Spark. So I think you can close if you're able to like rip most of the hand here and they don't have the Spectral Shield. You can just Bramble felling, and
Yeah,
I
that's
think it's
game.
like impossible for them to live. So yeah, that was the key turn right there for sure. Um, is stripping that one extra card to get the Miraging out of hand. And also, I think some of the blocking earlier, you could have conserved a bit of life, and that also would have helped you.
Mhm.
So those are kind of the big things, but we'll see how this endgame plays out. I think you just have to block with the Bramble Sparks, unfortunately. It's not where you want to be, but you don't have much choice, and it is tough from here to close. The fact that it's
So you
free
just go.
is so huge.
Yeah. And no matter how I slice it next turn, I can only take 2 cards from hand.
Yeah, yeah. So
And so then he's just going to bury me.
yeah, so you go to 1, you do as much pressure as you can, which I like. I think that that's right in this spot, but I agree with you that it's going to be very hard from here. Yeah, 2/3 blocks is pretty clean, and you have to give 2 cards here. And then a Spectral Shield for a third card, and then you're only able to swing back Reaping Blade. Yeah, so you're just going to get more and more behind here, as Enigma does in the end game. I'm assuming that they just kind of rip your hand here. Yeah, yeah, and this is over. Okay, yeah. So yeah, really, really interesting game. I think a good illustration of this matchup, and a few good learning points there. So the end game, pay attention to how many cards you can strip. I often think of it in terms of that, like more so than like damage or value. In that case, it's actually higher value too. It's 9 instead of 8. But I would also think of it in terms of like how many cards are you taking from them, and more cards is always better, of course. Yeah. Any questions you have that, at the end of this about this matchup or about the deck or
No, I think this was really helpful for me to, because there's, I think, a couple of turns that I could have played a bit cleaner. Um, but it's really cool to see kind of just like exactly the differences and like where I could be turns later.
Yeah, for sure. Flesh and Blood's often like this, where there's like one or two critical points in the game that can really swing things, especially as you get to like you're a very solid player. You play very well, and so the mistakes are very very minor, and yeah, they can sometimes make all the difference. I think that both of these games were super super close and ones that you potentially could have won, but I also think that you're doing a very impressive job for being 10-ish games in on the deck. So
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, no, these were great and a really good watch. And I think, going all the way back to wherever that Mira guy turn is, that's I think a really instructive moment for playing against Enigma that applies not only to Florian but to a lot of decks, especially the defensive decks, that you don't want to overextend. You really want to set up your arsenal, preserve your life total. New plays very similarly into Enigma, where you just kind of like make her actually kill you, and you can New's win condition in the matchup is usually fatigue with her daggers. She just keeps daggering and masking until Enigma just doesn't have any threats left. But it's very much the same idea of like building up that arsenal and just being willing to go, my turn's not that great here. I'm just gonna block your stupid Phantasmaclasm, and yeah, you get full tempo, but like sometimes you draw 2D reacts and like a ripple away or something, and it's just like okay. Um, so yeah, all right. I think that's gonna wrap us up for this video. Hopefully, this gives everybody an idea of one of the things that coaching can look like. You can of course work on specific skills and other things as well, but video review is a great way to learn. And yeah, I think these were some fantastic games that hopefully people really enjoy watching. So it's gonna wrap us up. Thank you so much to Rob, and good luck everybody at your upcoming ProQuests.